Good evening, I'm Churkin Flurkov, and welcome to I Wish I'd Known the Answer to That Earlier. This week, the Cult of the Devourer. They're among us, we're all aware of them, but who are they, and what do they want? The Cult of the Devourer is one of the most feared and reviled organizations in the Pact Worlds, and clear evidence of its ravages can be found on the fringes of inhabited space throughout the galaxy. The cult has been around for eons, though individual cells rarely last more than a few decades, and its devotees wage a non-stop war to destroy all existence in the name of their god, the Devourer. In most cases, the cult can be thought of like a hurricane on a low-tech world. It comes with little warning, damages and destroys everything in its furious path, and then weakens and breaks apart for no apparent reason. Nevertheless, the Cult of the Devourer is more than just a mere storm. It's a widespread interstellar and interspecies organization plotting the downfall of all civilization as part of a broader plan to end existence itself. Although the cult is made up largely of anarchists, its efforts are surprisingly well coordinated and carefully considered. Only by understanding the underlying motives and rough organization of the cult's various cells, divine agents, and sects can the true threat of the Cult of the Devourer be understood clearly. Before we begin looking into the organization itself, let's take a quick look at why we're all here. Who is the Devourer? Who is the Devourer, and why is he so important? The Devourer, also known as the Star Eater, is the chaotic evil god of black holes, destruction, and supernovas. With centers of worship around the Pact Worlds, including Akaton, Aposte, the Diaspora, Eox, and Verces, you can find regular signs of the Devourer's followers, often signified by a symbol of a black hole tinged with a red outline. Eons ago, the material plane sprang into existence in an instant, and someday it will end just as abruptly as all creation ceases to exist. Believed by some to have been born in the same instant of creation, or perhaps even to be the ghost of some entity from a previous cycle of existence, the Devourer seeks to hasten this inevitable end and unmake the entire plane, eradicating all matter and energy until nothing remains, not even the Devourer itself. Every machine that breaks, every living thing that dies, every star that goes supernova, every photon sucked into a black hole, every galaxy that goes dark, all these and more are said to be the handiwork of the Devourer. Ooh. The Devourer has no name, no form, no being. It is less a god than a primal force of the universe, an embodiment of malicious entropy, concerned only with the obliteration of all reality. Heedless of the meaningless existence of life in all its myriad forms, it cannot be reasoned with, delayed, or halted, and it largely ignores the pleas and prayers of even its most devout worshippers. Some cosmologists and theologians postulate that when the Devourer has consumed everything, and the mortal world expires, the Devourer will give birth to a new universe in place of the old. But the crazed cultists who venerate the Star Eater as a god know this for the foolishly hopeful lie that it is. There will be no rebirth, no second creation, only an immeasurable void of nothingness. Ooh, an interesting chap, this Devourer. The Church of the Devourer has little organization or leadership, only scattered, chaotic cults made up of berserkers, cannibals, nihilistic plotters, depraved reavers, and ruthless Solarians. While many of the faithful prey upon nearly every sentient being they encounter, reveling in destruction and mayhem, some members possess a cunning knack of planning, carefully engineering catastrophes and triggering disasters to maximize the loss of life and ruination of property and resources. Devourer cults are outlawed on nearly every civilized world, but hidden shrines can be found on remote asteroids and abandoned moons, and many cults form motley flotillas of ships that attack and slaughter all they come across in the depths of space. While the Devourer can be represented by a simple black dot or swirl representing the final collapse of space and time, the most common symbol is the black assertion, a black hole with a swirling red in its accretion disk. When the end finally comes, Devourer cultists believe space-time itself will weep the blood of the gods before finally passing into nothing. Now, before we learn more about the cult and its inner workings, let's find out a little bit about their background and who they are. The Cult of the Devourer, also known as the Scions of the Unmaking. Deep space provides cover for many criminals and outcasts, from mercenary pirates to demon binders and mutants driven insane by unshielded reactors. Yet the worst of these is likely the single-minded horror of the Cult of the Devourers. Civilized worlds often wonder why Devourer cultists bother worshipping a god of destruction when it offers them nothing in return. Yet what they fail to grasp is that nothing is exactly what such cultists desire. The Devourer's destruction promises not just an end, but a complete unmaking of all that is. It could consume not just the future, but the past. Not just the material plane, but all existence. By advancing its cause, the grief-stricken can literally undo past tragedies, making it so their losses never happened. By removing the afterlife, the guilty can avoid judgment. While priests of different sects debate whether this existence would be replaced by a new one, more to the Devourer's liking, their underlying premise is that the current existence has rotted and it must be erased completely. While the public thinks of Devourer cultists as sadistic cannibals, berserkers in gore-studded armor that raid ships for the joy of slaughter, this is only one facet of the faith. Such shock troopers are called wall breakers, barbarians driven by sacred drugs to slaughter and defile, not just for their own pleasure, but to break the spirits of civilization. Contemplating these are the hidden ones, pious psychopaths who move undetected among other societies, gathering information, recruiting, and planting the seeds of entropy. Priests and leaders can be from either choir, as the two different traditions are known, and different congregations place different emphasis on these two tactics. Above all of these, however, are the rare atrocytes, individuals who've broken free from the cycle of souls in order to mastermind destruction on a scale grand enough to attract the attention of the Devourer himself. While individual cults may be fractious, battling each other as well as victims in their sacred and twisted warships, all immediately bow to the will of the atrocyte, in whose empty eye sockets and storm cloud halo they might find their final victory. As atrocytes are the only authority a typical cult cell answers to without question, these beings are the inevitable answer to the question of how large-scale groups of anarchists can operate in concert to threaten all of civilization. Like the cults they often spawn, atrocytes have few similarities. Most appear in a form akin to those of the cult it's addressing. From common humanoids such as Lashunta, Orcs, or Vesk, to the bizarre entities like the Bartharus of Bretheda, or the twisted masses of cysts and tentacles found among the Dominion of the Black. According to what passes for scripture within the cult, the Devourer creates nothing, not even new shapes, and thus its most powerful agents borrow their forms from other creatures. In place of eyes, an atrocyte may have black voids in empty sockets, and all atrocytes' heads are enshrouded in a constant halo of grey haze that sometimes crackles with red energy or offers momentary glimpses of apocalyptic prophecy. Atrocytes are clearly powerful outsiders, but if they have a native plane of existence, no scholar has been able to find it. Many theologists hypothesize that atrocytes spend their time drifting through the void of deep space, the environment closest to absolute nothingness, or perhaps in the accretion disks of singularities consuming stars. Some scholars suspect that all atrocytes begin as mortals, devourer cultists who engineered acts of devastation so vast their god granted them a sliver of its own destructive power. Through the ravings and writings of those who survived encounters with atrocytes, Pact World researchers have determined that these beings can exist perpetually in a vacuum, teleport over vast distances, and never work together, and prefer building up cult cells to attack and terrorize societies rather than undertaking such efforts directly. Atrocytes often speak of themselves planting the seed of cult victory and then moving along. Now we've had a little look at who and why the cult are. But let's learn a little bit more about the organization themselves. There is no central authority that controls the Cult of the Devourer. No specific headquarters, no single acknowledged leader, no formal hierarchy. A lack of a universal set of rules makes it difficult to even discuss the organization as a whole in any detail, and that's exactly how its members like it. To the cultists, the destruction of everything is a goal that cannot be achieved by creating new rules or societies. The following generalities apply to most groups that consider themselves devourer cultists, but even these are not hard rules. Cult cells. Lacking any formal hierarchy, each group of devourer cultists that works together generally refers to itself as a single cell. A cell can have as few as 2 or 3 cultists, and in rare cases, it may have as many as a few thousand, though these larger hordes are more often many smaller cells fused together by an extremely powerful leader or a supernatural agent in order to accomplish a particular goal. Most cells tend toward the smaller side, operating alone, but potentially maintaining contact with other cells to coordinate larger attacks. Violent disagreements are common, and different cells, or even cultists within the same cell, regularly turn upon one another. When a cell fractures, it often splinters into multiple smaller cells, each of which strive to grow and recruit more members, thus spreading their destructive faith across the cosmos. Cells usually have a secret base of operations, and sometimes depend on mobile bases, such as starships or asteroids. Within these cells, cultists join a group, or choir, within the cult, to keep their own devotion to the Devourer. Those who take the public role, obvious to all, are the wall breakers, while those who operate in secret are referred to as the hidden ones. Most wall breakers are frontline combatants who generally spend their time attacking outposts of civilizations or preparing for such assaults. Hidden ones have roles that require them to pass as ordinary citizens, and many lead double lives, keeping the cult membership secret from co-workers and family members. There are numerous different sects within the worship of the Devourer, though these are defined more by vague similarities in beliefs and operating methods than by any formal orthodoxy. A cell might drift from sect to sect as its membership and goals change over time, but for all the chaotic squabbling, few cells bother to devise or promote their own doctrines. Each cell normally has a few senior cultists who guide and command other members of said cell, called Long Teeth. These elder cultists are respected and obeyed not due to any formal rank they hold, but simply because a devourer cultist does not achieve seniority within the cult without battle acumen, cunning, and a long track record of destruction. In some cells, Long Teeth are mostly hidden ones, entrusted with planning and organizing tasks the wall breakers can then carry out. In other cells, the Long Teeth are drawn from both choirs and divide their duties to fit their skills and inclinations. It's rare for cells to have primarily wallbreaker Long Teeth, though a few cells dedicated purely to acting as wandering warbands follow their most accomplished warriors. If a cell grows too large for the Long Teeth to directly command all the cultists, intermediaries step in to lead small groups. These intermediaries are often called fangs, though cells develop numerous other terms for them over time. Fangs arise from subgroups within the cells as needed, primarily through leadership and longevity. If fangs live long enough, they become long teeth. If a fang dies, some other cultist attempts to fill their shoes. Above all of these are the atrocytes, supernatural agents of the Devourer that sometimes spawn, expand, command, or train specific groups in order to accomplish some task important to the atrocyte's own efforts to bring an end to all existence. While atrocytes never devote themselves entirely to a single cell, they occasionally combine cells into vast hordes under their nihilistic banner, and the largest and most effective cells can be visited by atrocytes on a regular basis.
The Devourer Sects. Not to be confused with Devourer Sects, which can be pretty fun. Some broad, informal sects within the Cult of the Devourer have differing goals and philosophies on how to best serve their uncaring god. While these distinctions have little impact on how other organizations view or deal with the cells of the cult, understanding them can be useful in predicting what sorts of attacks a cell might attempt. Let's have a further look at some of these types of sect. Blood Door. Blood Door cells are motivated by the example of the Blood Scourge, a Devourer mystic who led a small fleet of cult ships to attack lone merchant ships, minor colonies, and outposts at the edge of Stellar Nation's zones of control. The Blood Scourge is believed to have become an atrocyte, and while her cell broke up upon her disappearance, its ships formed the core of dozens of smaller cells. Blood Door cells endlessly seek to increase the number of lives they claim by whatever means possible, and they keep themselves mobile to constantly search for new targets. They see every death they cause as a sacrifice to the Devourer. The act of killing is referred to as forcing the victim through the Blood Door. And they believe such offerings increase their god's power, so it can more easily destroy the universe. Some Blood Door cultists insist that when enough sacrifices have been made, the slaughter will create a portal through which the Devourer will enter from some other realm to begin its final onslaught. Feasters. Feaster cells focus on complete, unrecoverable destruction. While this sounds obvious given their faith, the requirement to prioritize utter annihilation usually causes them to act differently from other sects. For instance, if a cult of this sect is in a position to damage 20 starships or obliterate just one, its members would zealously focus on the one they can destroy utterly, on the premise that while damage can be healed and repaired, there is no recovery from total annihilation. This also makes them extremely dangerous in ground combat, as a feaster is likely to take the time to slit the throat of an enemy to confirm the kill, rather than focus on those still attacking him. Their name comes from sect members' tendency to engage in cannibalism, consuming the body of their foes as a form of destruction. The Nightmares. Nightmare cells hide within society and work to spread discontent, fear, and misery. They are inspired by the book known as The Darkest Night, a tome outlawed on many worlds that presents the idea that society is no more than an interconnected series of coincidences that will ultimately collapse if those within them can be made to question their safety and value. The goal of such a cell is to destroy the perceived worth of a society, eventually causing a complete societal breakdown, though many also use these tactics to foster upheaval, such as civil wars. Members of this sect are nearly all hidden ones, with a rare wallbreaker recruited to use in suicide missions. Their efforts often take decades to come to fruition. Now, that's about all tonight, folks. I hope we've all learned something more about the Cult of the Devourer. An interesting bunch. I've had a few drinks with them over the years, and I have to say, not too bad. I'm going to give them on the Flurkov meter, we're going to give the Cult of the Devourer a 7.3 out of 10. Flurkovs. Anyway, thank you for joining me for, I wish I knew the answer to that before, I'm Churkin Flurkov, and I'll see you next time. Peace.